Well, if it isn't our long lost co-host, Jeff Sharples, back from the Winterland. I don't know where you were just, you had family in town or something. What was going on, Jeff? Tell us all about you.
Yeah, we had a real busy last couple of weeks. So we had to just do an enjoying orange slice with Ian last week. And I was up north for a while.
Nothing but rind last week. It was nothing but peel.
Yeah, we're trying to diversify our show by dropping me off, seeing if we can push it a little harder. But I was up in Canada and I was with family. So it was actually a great trip, but I was back and forth between Kelowna and Penticton, where we have family. And so beautiful drive, one of the best drives in the world. If you have ever been on it, you drive by Okanagan Lake the whole way. So it was good. So I was up there, and then the week before, I forget what happened. I guess it's almost like I had 2 bye weeks in a row, which was crazy, but we just couldn't make it. We couldn't make it happen.
People
logistics.
Here's 2 emails. Here's one email from my mom. Where's Jeff? I'm worried. Tell Jeff to get back. You're not as good. Here's one from my sister. I don't watch this for you. I watch this for Jeff. Get Jeff back.
Please. Who's that from? Cab? Cab.
We're worried about Jeff quit. I'm like, Jeff just needs some time every once in a while, guys. Jeff just needs some time. Yeah. But
it's funny.
We had a great guest voice, Al Murdoch, in-house voice of the Vancouver Canucks, and he was very disappointed that you weren't here. He rifled off some of your credits when you played hockey. He was like, I just wanted to talk to him about the Kelowna Wings. So big fan up there, Jeff. Al Murdoch.
Well, I have to apologize to Al because we kept on trying to put it together. And we just couldn't do it. Like I said, back and forth with family. We had a lot going on. It was great, but I'm here today.
I'm letting you know how the show works. This is how the show works when you're not here. I have to be serious and stupid, and it is a struggle for me to get the serious part out. So so your seriousness is welcome back.
Well, I apologize to Al too, because we tried a couple different times. So sorry, Al. We got to get you back on, and I'll answer any question you'd like about the Kelowna Wings or the WHL. But that was good. And today we got we're getting ready. The real kickoff of the NHL season was in Europe this weekend, but
it's kind of put a weird funk on it, right? Starting it. Why did they start it early? So they could be back for more games? Is that what it was?
I don't know maybe they wanted to stay away from, the NFL. So what did they play over there? Friday, Saturday. So they wanted to stay away from the NFL because the NFL was in London on Sunday, right? With New York Giants and Green Bay. So, and the baseball playoffs are on, but I mean, I don't know how you avoid that, when they do the schedule. So
when you start it, you got to start it. You can't worry about everybody else. You got to be proud of your product and say, we're going for it, boys. May take us 3 games to get back to our normal ratings, but we're going for it. Yeah.
Well, Nashville's thrilled, right? They start the season against San Jose 2-0. So that they're probably wishing they could stay over there.
San Jose wish they could stay over there as well.
I watched some of it, and it wasn't too bad. San Jose looks like they could be in for a little bit of a long season, but you never know. Maybe getting over there kind of brought the team a little closer together. There's been so many changes in San Jose the last few years, especially recently, going back to even last year. Kane's not there anymore. Burns is gone now. Pavelski was a couple of years ago. I don't think they've recovered from that. Marlowe, Thornton, everyone's kind of left, and now it gives the new guys a chance to kind of gel. So maybe being over in Europe for a week like they were will bode well for them as the season goes on.
Yeah, they need to get together. It'll help out the team for sure. We'll get an update. We got Brett Hedican will be coming on the show in a couple of weeks, so we'll get an update from him and see what he thought about that all. So that'll be good.
Yeah, him and the dog sled play-by-play caller Honor. Yeah, he was awesome.
I'm going to call him I Did a Hun.
He'll love that.
I went to. You've been to a couple preseason games already, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
What was the last one you seen?
Okay, I saw two. I saw Colorado, and then I also saw them play. Was it Arizona? No, trying to think who the other one was. Yeah, it was. I think it was Arizona. But you know what? One of the things it kind of reminded me a little bit of the NFL. Like they played some of their guys, but they didn't play a bunch of their guys, and so
Half
the
and half.
NHL. Yeah, the NHL's kind of even more so. It seemed like I know they got to play a certain amount of guys with a certain amount of experience, but it kind of seems like the NHL is going by the way of the NFL. It's saying we've got way too much money invested in these guys. We're not going to play them very much.
I kind of think that's not uncalled for. You don't want to waste. You don't want to waste a guy in your first preseason game when you got 6 more, 7 more. How many? It's total of 10. Is it total of 10 preseason?
I think it's depending on who you are, somewhere between 6 and 8. But
a lot.
But if you look at it, and it'll be interesting to see how the NHL does. You watch the NFL. The first 3-4 weeks have not, had some really poor games. The NHL, they play 82, so I guess they can afford to have 4, 5, 6 games that aren't great, but they're not in the position that the NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball's in, where they have the TV money and the following. They always have to kind of push out the boundaries. And so if any league has to hit the ground running, it's the NHL. So I'm hoping that, that's what happens. We're really the true kickoffs tonight. In my view, with the Rangers are hosting the Lightning, and Vegas is in LA, and excited to see those 2 games. And the Rangers in Tampa, I think I kind of get a feel for what we're going to get out of that one. Two really good teams, and Tampa with all that experience, but I'm really interested to see what Vegas and LA looks like. I'm interested to see what kind of team. Well, it could be a real, they could be going right at it, because Vegas kind of seems to, just reading the press locally here, like they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder this year because everyone's kind of discounted them and kind of washed them away. In LA, you and I saw them.
First year of Vegas.
Yeah, we'll see if they can rekindle that. That's gonna bode really well for them. But you and I both saw LA, and we got really excited about what we saw there last year in the playoffs.
I think they've got nothing but stronger.
Yeah, well, that's the question. Is LA keep making that next step? They picked up Fiala. They picked up some really nice pieces. The question I have for Vegas is, Logan Thompson looks like he's going to be the goalie. Can he, carry the load for them? And if he can, they're going to be in pretty good position. And the question I have in LA is their young D, does their young defense keep making that next step? And if they do, then they're going to be in a really good spot. But
Daryl will be able to answer that question about LA when we have him in a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
Answer that. Watch out. I went to I talked about it a little bit last week, but I didn't have anybody to talk to about it with because you didn't show up. I went and seen Seattle, Vancouver, and Shane Wright is the one that I couldn't take my eyes off of. I took my eyes off of you. Even though I went to see the Canucks, I wanted to see what the Canucks were all about. All I could was watch this kid, Shane Wright, and it just the way he carried himself was, I'm just like, oh, ooh, wow, he is really good. I don't know if I don't know if
no. I haven't seen anything. I mean, just some clips from Seattle in the preseason. I haven't really seen too much of them, but this is a guy that could be a game changer for that organization. And they got the kid from Michigan last year with Berniers, who looks like he's going to fill in real nice. The biggest thing I say about Seattle is they got to get someone that'll get in front of a puck this year in net. Right? If they can get their goalies to get in front of a few pucks and play like they're capable of playing, Seattle's going to make a big jump. I'm not saying they're a playoff team, but they'll be much better.
Grubauer has to be embarrassed about last year and really want to do something.
100%. And well, of course, while we're talking about that, my phone is acting up again this week.
That's okay. We're gonna do a couple more minutes here, and then we're gonna bring in our guest. I know you're frozen right now. People must be loving watching this. If you're listening to it, you're winning right now. If you're watching, you're being scared.
There we go.
There we
We'll
go.
just get Brian to cut that out. You know, it's amazing. We've only done about 80 of these. Well, you've done one more than me, so you're much better. You're much better than I am at it.
My Iron Man streak continues.
Yeah, that's right. You're the Phil Kessel of
I am. I love hot dogs.
slices. Yeah.
Phil looks good.
Yeah, Phil the Thrill. I mean, watch him tonight. Watch him pot a couple. You know, he probably feels like he got paroled out of Arizona. I got to tell you, watching Arizona, there's some concern there as far as well. They're concerned. There's some concern there about the facilities and what it looks like. And I can tell you from playing in a university facility in Vegas, we played at the Thomas and Mack Center at UNLV.
Done everything, people. He's done everything.
We've done it all. One thing you're not the second in command. You're like the third or fourth. There are so many things that come in front of you at a university campus, which is just the way it is. And that's the way it was for us when we were playing our games at Thomas and Mack with the UNLV.
Scientology probably has a better handle on the rink than you do.
Yeah, the people that buy it out, the NFR, whoever, you are way down the list. And that's what I think the players in Arizona and probably the organization is realizing, that it's like you can't fight City Hall. Like they're in this university rink in down there, and they're going to be playing in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people. But supposedly the setup is not, the dressing room, the workout facility, all that stuff is not up to what people would consider to be NHL standards. It's like, get used to it. I mean, when you know, there's not going to be really any advertising in the building that's not related to the university. This is not the kind of deal where, you know,
this was not thought through.
Well, they're trying to keep the team in Arizona, but this is the game should be a lot of fun, but the everything around it might be a little bit of a struggle, and that struggle is going to be 2 or 3 more years, which
it's going to be fun for
great.
It's going to be fun for the 3,000 fans that show up for the 5,000 seat venue, but the players are going to struggle with it. That'd be great if they still couldn't sell it out.
I don't know what's going to happen there, but I think it was, who was it, Nick Kipros or someone was talking about it last week, that things are just not as they appear in a desert, which have never been all that great. But this really would be
I would say
blow to them.
That team will be sold by the end of the year. That's my ooh, I'm a Swami. I knew. Yeah, I think that team will be sold. I think that owner's out. I don't think anybody's happy with that owner.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he owns the Sierra. The Sierra. That would be the Sierra, the Sahara. He owns the Sahara here in Vegas, and I think he's got pretty deep pockets.
Girl that we went to school with. I do, but I think I don't. He's struggled on paying his bills a couple times. Just to let you know. The word is he's keeping it because if he builds a building, he can do some sort of gambling thing out of it. Online gambling. That's the only reason he's kind of keeping the team. The basketball team has come up for sale, right?
Well, I mean,
if somebody buys the basketball team and wants the hockey team, boom.
Could see that possibly. I don't know, but
I do. I talk to them. I don't. No, I think that's going to happen. I really do.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think I thought there was a better alternative in Phoenix area than playing in a 4,200 seat rink at a university, but evidently there's not. So let's see what happens. I'm just saying, what I'm hearing is that things on the ground, as far as facilities and everything else, is not up to or what was expected at an NHL level. So it might iron itself out too. I mean, Arizona might go on and have a really good year. I don't see it, but we'll go from there. Division's just too tough, right?
Division just keeps getting tougher, and they just keep getting weaker.
Yeah, I mean, you can't afford. Unfortunately, they're one of those teams that you can't afford to give points away to. Expect Dallas to be better, and they squeaked in. Expect Colorado to to make another step. I
Can't
expect
be any
Winnipeg.
better.
Yeah, they can't be any better, but I think another year of kind of being champions. They do have a couple. Well, I think they will be, and let's not forget about Winnipeg, and then Minnesota. Even though they've kind of lost a few pieces here, I really like what they're doing up there too.
I like when what's his face the goal Talbot's wife complained online, so he traded him away to Ottawa.
Yeah, you don't raise your voice around Billy Guerin or you're gone.
Yeah, you're gone.
Yeah,
a good attitude there. Team. There's no I in team. There's no wife in team. Ooh, I love it. Yeah. Let's so the season starts tomorrow. We've got our hockey pool. If you go to any of our social medias, you'll find our office pool. You just pick your team, and then you let it ride. You can trade a couple players throughout the season. It's just one of those easy office pools. Name your team. I think we've let it go to up to 30, and I think we have 25 teams in it right now. We should probably let it go to 32 is what we should probably let it go to. That makes sense for this podcast about hockey that we're doing. Join that in. But right now, let's just before we bring on our guests, who will probably be a little bit, just to let you know, get into this. Let's do our champion. Do you want to do top 4, top 8, top 2? Which do you want to do, Jeff? I know we should probably talk about this beforehand, but I don't do that.
No, that's what makes us so successful. So we never discuss anything. There's no thought that goes into this podcast. Come on. Top 8, sure. I mean, we can. You want
4 from each side.
Okay. Since you brought it up, why don't you? Do you just want to go team about, or you want to go? Let's go conference.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to go conference?
Okay. Conference.
Okay. Pacific Conference.
Well, the Western Conference versus the Eastern Conference.
Sorry, Pacific.
Pacific.
I went to time zone first. So let's go Eastern Conference.
Okay.
Eastern Conference is here we go. New York Rangers. It's gonna be Tampa.
Okay.
I think Miami's gonna fall out of it. I know people call them Florida. I think they're gonna fall out of it. I think they're gonna have a really tough season. I think Pittsburgh's going to bounce back. Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I don't even know if these guys.
You do an 8 aside or 4 aside?
4 aside.
Okay, I think.
Pittsburgh goes against the Rangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't be the 4. Could they be the 4?
Yes. Yeah, they could. One of the. Oh well, you know what? Yeah, I mean, you could just pick your 4 best teams, I guess, if you want.
You can, but you want to try to go for and then I'm going to go Toronto. So Toronto would go up against Tampa. So yeah.
Toronto and Tampa are in the same division, right? No?
Same conference.
No, same conference.
Yeah.
It's yeah, they're not. Okay, so
you want that again? Tampa?
Yep.
And Toronto versus Toronto in the Final Four. Right. And then Pittsburgh and New York Rangers.
Okay. I like you know what? I'd like Tampa to get back in there. I like Carolina to get back as well. You know what? There's something with the Penguins that I really like.
Yes, smart.
But you know, we're kind of going with the same teams here.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
You know, and Toronto is another one. I think Toronto's probably ready to make that next step. I'm trying to think of who else I'm missing out there. I mean, I do like Florida.
I think Florida's going to struggle. I think Calgary won that trade big time.
Yeah, they when you give away 2 players that play pretty much every situation for you for, you know, a player that's mostly an offensive player, you know, that like, I mean, Tkachuk's a great player, but those other 2 guys play a lot of different roles for you. And, you know, Tkachuk's never going to kill a penalty, right? Maybe Maurice will play him as a penalty killer once in a blue moon, but I do really like Paul Maurice, and I do really think he's a heck of a coach. But again, it's either Tampa or Florida that's got to come out. Let's see. So we got the Rangers. You know, I wanted to go for the Islanders a little bit more, but I just don't see that right now. And then You know who I'll throw in there? And throw in Boston.
Oh,
I think
nice.
they get back. I think Boston. I think they're always relevant. They changed up coaches, but I don't think Montgomery's going to go in there and try and turn over the apple cart. So there's some teams for you for the East.
Okay, before we leave the East, let's who makes the playoffs from the East that we're not expecting? Write these down, people. Keep them in your book.
Yeah.
Find us at the end of the year.
You know, I don't know if there is anybody. I mean, I guess if you're going to look for a team that might surprise you, although, you know, they've been around for a long, long time, but a team we didn't talk about is maybe a team that could get into another gear, especially as Ovi gets closer to Gratz's record, is Washington. Would be, I mean, more than a team to look out. That would be a team I'd kind of keep an eye on as a dark horse team. Not really a dark horse team that won the cup just a few years ago, but we haven't said anything about them. So I would keep an eye on Washington. You know, obviously you're looking at Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit as young teams that you think could make the next step. But I just think that the veteran teams in that conference are so deep. I don't see Philly really doing much. New Jersey will be better, but you know what? I'll just say keep an eye on Washington as someone coming out of the pack.
Mine is Ottawa.
I think Pearl agrees with you.
Hold on one second. Western Conference. Now that we got Pearl to shut up, who's your? Went first on the other side, so you go first in the West.
Okay, how many teams am I picking for to get to the conference finals or make it in?
I'm writing them down. Yeah.
Okay, so I think, you know, real easy one there is the Stanley Cup champions. So you pick those guys. Colorado. I think St. Louis will be back. Just really.
Like having quite the preseason.
You see?
Yeah, he stopped a lot of pucks.
Well, I mean, there's just something about that team and the way they operate. Although they did lose Perron, which I think might be a bigger loss.
Right?
Yeah,
that surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, he probably got another year out of Detroit, is my guess. And so I think he did a 3-year deal in Detroit, I think. So that's probably they're going to miss him more than you think. But then he could be a guy back available to them around the trade deadline if Detroit isn't, you know, progressing like they'd like. So you got those guys, and then the big toss-up, you know, is what's Winnipeg and Dallas going to do? You know, those two are definitely in the mix. I think Colorado's a clear front runner out there, no question. So, you know, Colorado, St. Louis for sure. Then you got out in the West, you know, odds-on favorite right now, obviously, with the summer they've had is Calgary, and then you can never sleep on Edmonton. But the three teams that I think are the most interesting, probably in the Western Conference this year, minus Winnipeg, who I think is interesting for different, kind of the same reasons. But you got Vancouver, LA, and Vegas. What are those three? Those guys are going to be fighting, I think, for one of the last spots, either the wild card or the below Edmonton and Calgary. I just think Edmonton's going to be able to outscore their problems early on, but they got to figure out that defense, and hopefully our friend Jack Campbell can help them out. Calgary, my only concern in Calgary is I just wonder if they're going to have enough depth up front, scoring depth, because their defense and their goaltending is going to be as good as there is in the league. I just only concerned about Calgary, and they addressed it a little bit, but it's forward depth and pace. Just wonder if they got enough pace, and maybe with the new guys they're bringing in, that'll help take care of itself. So forward depth scoring is my concern there. In Vancouver, I don't know what we're going to get there. You get the best goalie probably in the division or maybe in the league in Demko, which is going to help them. Their defense is the question. LA is, again, probably their defense, and then Vegas, the drama. What's going to happen?
Once again, to anybody listening, I said, "Who's your favorite four in the West?"
Yeah.
Jeff picked
like 7 teams,
14 out of 16 teams.
I don't know. We're just waiting for Daryl. So I guess I went on. I'm going to say,
we can push pause. We don't.
Yeah, well, we're going to have Brian eliminate about 7 minutes of it.
Oh, wait, that's staying in. That's all staying in there. I'm going to say I'm just going to go through it. You're saying Avalanche. You're saying St.
Louis and Calgary. And I'm going to go with, you know what? I think because I live here, I hate to be a homer, but I want to see what I want to see what Vegas is going to do. But I think Calgary and Edmonton get in. And so there's your 4. And then your wild card teams, the teams I'm going to really enjoy watching are Vancouver, LA, and Vegas to see what they do. So the Pacific's going to be a lot more interesting than it has been in the past, I think, this year.
Jeff has said that he still picks 17 teams. I'm going to pick Colorado. I'm going to pick Edmonton. I'm going to pick Calgary. And I'm also going to pick Columbus. Boom.
Columbus from the Eastern Conference.
Are they in the East? I thought they were always in the West.
Oh, so it's one thing for me to go with a bunch of teams. It's another thing for you to not even be in the right conference.
You are listening to the most educated hockey podcast in North America. Enjoying orange slices with Jeff.
People are going to be.
It's time for us to bring our guest.
We should have taken 3 weeks off. That's what people are saying.
It's time for us to go to the guest. The guest is brought to you by Super Deker. Super Deker, it's a training system for your child or you who is not giving up your hopes and dreams to get into the NHL, become a better stick handler. You just got to order it off of superdeker.com. Use the code SLICES, get a little bit of a discount, bring it home. Next thing you know, one of you is in the NHL. All thanks to enjoying orange slices with Jeff and Ian. Let's go to our guest. Our guest today was drafted by the Los Angeles Kings in 1980. He played in the league for the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Washington Capitals. And he said, you know what? I like living in Los Angeles. And he moved back to Los Angeles where he continued in coaching. And now he's in color commentator position, something that I won't be doing. And he has the most art on any wall you've ever seen in your life. Welcome, Daryl Evans. Hey, Daryl, how are you?
Oh, real good. Just trying to make some time here away from my interior designing career here. So I'm glad we were able to squeeze it in.
It's so funny because you are known for the way you dress. So
not the way I decorate.
I love it.
That's a unique piece in the back, by the way. There's only one of those.
That takes you to a different dimension, right?
I don't even know what the hell it is back there. So
That's perfect. I love it. So tell us how you were born in Toronto and you start playing youth hockey in Toronto. Is that how it all starts?
I did, yeah. Born in Toronto. My dad had never skated, and hockey was something foreign to our family. So neighborhood friend, his dad and my dad kind of had a little conversation about putting us in-house hockey. We used to play street hockey out there. Just a couple of snow piles on the road was our net, and slap a ball around, skinny wooden sticks that became slivers, and that's how it all started. And then one year got put into in-house youth hockey, and there was no looking back after that. It contagious, support, and
just loved it as soon as you started.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was actually, and I was such a poor skater my first year. I was actually a goalie because I couldn't skate.
No way.
Yeah.
So how do you think that makes goalies feel when you say that? I was such a bad skater, they made me a goalie.
Well, it turned out your goalies were supposed to be your best skaters,
right?
And so I was at playing goal because I used to play goal in street hockey. I don't know how I got put in goal in street hockey. Maybe they just like shooting the ball at me.
Were you the youngest?
No, I was kind of like it was amongst my peers, but maybe I was the only one that was goofy enough to go in net that didn't mind getting hit by the ball. So
I love it.
So that's all I started. But my mom and dad, they missed one game that year when I was a youngster, and this one kid in the league could kind of flip the puck a little bit, and he hits me between the eyes. And I come home, my neighbor that took me to the game, and my mom's looking at me, and I've got these, I look like a raccoon. And then my dad comes home from his Saturday job, and he's wondering, hey, how was hockey today, son? Dad, I loved it. He goes, well, guess what? He says, you learn to skate next year, you don't play.
No way.
I'm sitting there like, where the hell am I going to learn to skate by next season? I can't even stand up, let alone skate. And
right.
I went to a hockey school in Toronto. It was a power skating school, and I'll never forget my coach. He called me spaghetti arms because my arms were all over the place. But he must have been a magician, because not only I learned to skate, but I became an all-star the next season, and then hockey career just took off from there. It
Awesome.
was a lot of fun, and then I started teaching at a very young age. Within a couple of years, I was teaching as a junior instructor, and it's something I've had a lot of passion for basically 50 years now, 50 plus years.
Nice.
Hey, Daryl. Yeah. Hey, so Daryl, talk to us a little bit about, so you got into minor hockey, and then just kind of your way through minor hockey, junior, and then on to pro. Like, where were some of your stops, and maybe some coaches that had some pretty big, or people that had big influence on where your career took you?
Yeah, I think it started with that that first power skating coach that give me the confidence and also a foundation to be able to learn to skate. And then, as I mentioned, I started teaching a couple of years later, and a gentleman that I was teaching for used to coach one of our older teams within our organization. I played with the Young Nationals back in Toronto. We wore the red and white, basically like Team Canada type of thing with the red maple leaf, and it took a lot of pride in wearing that. And Frank Miller was the coach of one of the older teams, and he had a power skating school and a camp and thing like that. And he invited me out to give me a job as a youth instructor.
Nice.
And so I think that was a big step. So I was probably mature beyond my years at a young age, for having taken on responsibility in that. My first hockey coach in travel hockey was a guy by the name of Gary Dusso. He had a lot of confidence in my game, and he helped my game grow, and I had him for a number of years in youth hockey. And then when we were in Pee Wee, we had one heck of a hockey club, and at that time we became the first team to win the city of Toronto, the province of Ontario, in the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. And I captained that team, and it was a special team. We were playing against the likes of Paul Coffey's and Wayne Gretzky's and Steve Ludzik's and all those guys. Those were all my peers growing up in Toronto,
Mhm.
and that was a lot of fun. And then the year after, we all stayed together in Bantam. After Bantam, instead of going to play midget hockey, I went into junior B. So I was playing junior B as a youngster. Wayne Gretzky had come to Toronto at that time. He was on our team. Billy Gardner, who played with the Chicago Blackhawks, Stuart Smith, who was with the Hartford Whalers, Gordie Howe's youngest son, Murray Howe, was on that team. And we had a lot of really good players in that team. And I think, there's some growth in that year. I was still playing defense. I was always a defenseman as a youth hockey player. I never played forward till I got to the OHA or OHL, whatever it was called. And that's when I played my first bit of forward. When I went to training camp, I was drafted by the Niagara Falls Flyers. And after one day of training camp, Bert Templeton, the late Bert Templeton, who was the coach of that team, who also had a huge influence on my career. I think anybody that had the privilege to play for him learned a lot about the game, and probably just more about the intensity that you had to play with. And he came to me one day after training camp, and he said to me, he says, he goes, "If you ever played forward?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well," he says, "you better learn by tomorrow." He says, "because I got no room on my team for you on defense." We had a lot of returning defensemen. And the only other young guy that was drafted there was Mark Botel. And Mark Botel was drafted by Philadelphia from Toronto as well, that I played against. And he was 6'7", 240 pounds, as a young kid. And, here was a little smurf like me that was 5'8" and 165 with my hockey bag and, and a spare tire on me. I mean, so it was, I became a forward the next day when I went to training camp, and I was able to make the team, and I gutted it out. And I remember a conversation I had with Bert Templeton around holiday time. We were coming back into Niagara Falls from a road trip, and he said to me, he says, "Hey," he goes, "come on over here, kid." And I oh geez, what I do wrong now? I'm in a doghouse again. And he goes, he says, he said, "I got to tell you, Sam, I'm pretty impressed with the way that you hung in there." He says, "I expected you to quit." He says, one of those, slick little kids from Toronto coming, from the big city, coming to the other teams. I said, "Well," he says, I said, I appreciate the opportunity." And he goes, "How many goals you got now?" And I said, oh, I said, just 7. And he said, wow, he says, that's pretty good. I said, well, I said, I'd like to have more. I said, by the end of the year, I said, I'm going to lead your team in scoring. And he kind of chuckled to me, and he says, he goes, he says, that's what I like about you. He says, you're confident. He says, but he says, you're not arrogant. He says, you're not cocky or anything like that. He said, but you're confident. And I said, well, no, I says, I'm feeling good. I said, I'm learning. And so time goes by and season comes to an end, and we're getting back off the bus that we'd played. I think it was our last road game was actually in Toronto. And he goes, hey, kid, come on over here. And I go, oh, geez, now what I do, because he goes, you lied to me. I said, oh, geez, what lied to you? I said, I haven't been told, I have never said anything yet, like, that I even consider lying to you. And he goes, you told me you're going to lead our team in scoring. I said, oh, geez, I forgot about that. Well, it turned out that game when we went in, I was playing on the line with Stan Adams was our centerman on the team. And that was Frank Mahovlich's nephew. And he was in his final year. Well, going into the last game of the year, we both had the same amount of goals. And during the game, we had an outnumbered attack, and I drew the goaltender and the defenseman over, and I passed it back door for him for a tap in. So he ended up beating me by 1 goal. But I ended up scoring 39 goals my rookie year, playing forward in UHL. That was a huge boost for me.
That's awesome.
I think had there been an 18-year-old draft at that time, I may have gotten drafted a lot higher than I did as a 19-year-old when the year after. That's when they introduced the 18-year-old draft, because now the draft, they're going after the 18-year-old kids.
I'm gonna ask you right now, because do you think it should be 19 still, or what do you think?
What, I'd like to see it be 19. I wouldn't even mind being 20. Probably 19 is probably 20 is probably too old. So 19 is probably the perfect time. And the reason I say that, it gives these kids an extra year to develop. I think it improves. I think it improves junior hockey. I think it improves college hockey, and I think the NHL teams, it's a little bit less risk, less gamble. They get a better idea of the type of player that they're going to have. I mean, that 1 year of maturity for some kids at that age is huge. So I'm not sure whether or not it'll ever happen, but I think it definitely would be.
What do you think needs to happen? What do you think needs to happen to make it happen? Like how does that happen?
Yeah, it's I don't know how it happens. I think it's just the league coming down. I mean, regardless of what they're going to do, just like saying you're wearing helmets or you're wearing mouth guards, you're wearing this, you're wearing that. They just have to they have to dig their heels in. And I mean, there's always going to be a kid. There's always going to be once in a while there's going to be a Wayne Gretzky that's going to come by. There's going to be a Connor McDavid that could probably play when they're 15 years old, maybe. But I don't think we change all the rules for that, because I think then what we do is we try to force feed the league, and there's no need for that. The league is such a great league, and there's so many great players. We're going global now. You look at the people that are coming from all different countries in the world and how skilled and how talented they are. The kids that are playing today, the access they have, to the internet and all the things, the videos to be able to improve their skills. I mean, the skills on these kids today are way beyond where they were, 20 and 30 years ago. So I think patience, you're meant to make it, you're going to make it, whether you're 18 or 19 years old. I think sometimes, we take an 18-year-old kid and we put too much upon them, and you see some of these kids that, never really do pan out, because I look at guys that we've had here, in Los Angeles the last couple of years, and Adrian Kempe, look at how long it took him to get to, the top of his game. And he's a real nice player right now. Quentin Byfield, everybody's, saying, oh, he's got to be doing this. He should be playing here. He should be on the first line. He's growing. His game's better. He's a better player than he was, 2 years ago. There's no need to have to try to force feed him in at 18 years of age, just to kind of put him in with his peers, guys like Stutzla in the Ottawa Senators.
Right.
Hey, Daryl, question. Did you say after your first year of second year, you played junior B? Because Ian and I talk about this, like about the draft. So how do you get there how do you get these kids ready, and where do they go? Because a lot of these kids leave, go play junior at a young age. And, the thought process is maybe another year at home or some more time, like you said, to develop. But the problem is getting them to the right level of competition. They move the draft back a year. You not only do you give them another year of development, but maybe they don't get pushed out of their own environment at home as quickly. I don't know. I mean, Do you see a problem with how we get these kids ready for the draft, or do you think that doesn't need a lot of tweaking?
No, I think that could use a little bit of tweaking as well. I think it's important for kids, especially, we're in a society right now where, things are, really up in the air. There's a lot of chaos out there. And I think the longer that, a young child, whether it's a boy or a girl, and regardless of what sport it is, the closer that they can stay to home for a longer period of time, I think the more grounded that they're going to become, moving forward. There's a lot to be learned from that. Not every kid's ready to step out at 14, 15 years of age and, go somewhere else to, whether it's for sports or anything, even for school, that's a tough step. I mean, not everybody's prepared for that as much as, it looks good on the surface, deep down, there might be some issues there that maybe come out later. So, I think, even at a younger age, like I said, I went from playing Bantam hockey to playing junior B, but all it was, changing the rink in my city. I was only going, 2 miles this way instead of 3 miles that way. So, nothing really got changed a lot. I was playing against older players, more skilled players, but right.
That's the luxury. That's the luxury of growing up in Toronto.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
Not growing up in Manitoba or something, northern British.
So kids like that, maybe don't have that, that same access to, the competitiveness. And I know we're going through that, here in California a little bit, where we're seeing our kids that are traveling back, to the East Coast or going into Canada, to play more competitive. I think, and again, it's easier said than done. I think if we kept the kids that are in our areas closer to home, I think they would help develop the game, because the better ones on each team, you put 2 or 3, let's say the most developed players at each age group, they're going to make their peers better,
right,
by playing with them. But if they just continue to keep moving on, then that group that is struggling a little bit is playing against kids that are struggling all the time. So you're not going to develop kids as quickly. You may get 1 or 2 that might come out of that batch, but I think if a few of the better players at a young age stay tight to their group, and we don't put as much emphasis on winning right off the bat, I think the development will force the kids to, or allow the kids to be able to stay closer to home and develop better.
Before we get to talking about what you're doing with youth hockey now, let's finish talking. Let's talk about you getting drafted and ending up in the NHL and where it takes you. And so, how old are you when you get drafted?
I was drafted as a 19-year-old.
Okay, at the LA Kings, were you?
Yeah, 1980 by the LA Kings. Yeah.
You get a phone call? What happens at that time?
I was at the draft in Montreal, at the old Forum in Montreal, and it was an incredible experience sitting in that building, a historic building, with my peers, and having some teammates and guys that I played with and against, having their names called earlier in the draft. How happy you are for them, and then eventually to hear your own name come out.
What number were you?
I was drafted in the 9th round, 200 or 100. No, let's see, 170 something or whatever it was. Because
so today, that mean you went 3rd overall. That's what that means.
I like your style. When's payday? When's that check coming? I'll take minimum wage. Sign me up.
I love it. So you're drafted. Do you go to camp that year? What happens?
Yep, go right to training camp that year. The training camp for the Kings at that time was in Victoria, British Columbia. An incredible experience going there for a couple of weeks, and seeing the likes of Marcel Dion and the Triple Crown line at that time. That was pretty special. It gives you something real, positive to take back to your junior team. Because when you come back to junior, whether it was myself or other guys that were on our teams that went to camps and came back like I did, I think you bring some leadership back with you, especially if you approach it in the right mindset. And I think I was able to do that because it was such a great experience for me, and it also gives you a better indication as to you think you're a really good player and you're good amongst your peers, but in order to play at that next level, I've got to be this, or I've got to do that. I can't do this, so you learn a lot, and how you apply it to your next season, should make you a better player come the end of the year.
Nice. I like
that. So Daryl, so you went with the Kings. That must have been incredible, right? To get out did you get some time out in LA? Or like, how how long did they keep you? Played you some games? Did they show you around the city at all? Like, how was that? Or was it Victoria and then you got sent back?
It was a lot different back then. Being that there were, the teams weren't out on the West Coast. Like we didn't have the San Jose's and the Anaheims and no Arizona. There was no Vegas at the time. So all the preseason games were kind of played back there. And by the time they got down to the, so-called final roster for the last game or two, I wasn't part of that group as a 19-year-old. So as a 19-year-old, I went back to my junior team, and I got traded in my last season from Niagara Falls Flyers to the Brantford Alexanders. I was fortunate enough to play on line with Mike Bullard and Mark Hunter, two guys that who went on to play and had successful careers in the National Hockey League. It was a lot of fun. But then the year after, when I went to training camp, I did come back to Los Angeles, and I made it as kind of like one of the final cuts, so to speak. And I got to Los Angeles, but there was no, fancy tour or anything like that, coming around the city. It was kind of explore on your own. Seeing the palm trees was great, getting off the plane. And it's a whole different world, today, 40 years later, than it was, back in the 80s, the way these players are treated and the things that they're exposed to. But again, another good experience there. And then I started off my professional career in New Haven. That was the Kings American Hockey League affiliate. So that's where I started off.
When they send you down, do you have to get your way to the New Haven, or do they set up?
That's a funny story, actually. So, from LA, I went back to Toronto because I had to pick up my things, because when you go to training camp, you only take a couple of bags with you. You don't take your kind of like all your belongings for the year. So I go to Toronto, and I'm going to spend like maybe a day or so there, whatever it was. And then I had to report to New Haven for the American Hockey League training camp. And so I kind of got an itinerary, and it says Connecticut limousine is going to pick me up at JFK in New York. And I go, oh, wow, look at this, man, this is the NHL, I got a limousine pick me up. So here I am, I get to New York, it's late at night. And because I try to stay home as long as I could, spend as much time with my family. So I'm outside New York in the airport there, and I'm looking around, I'm waiting for this big stretch limo to pop by. And I'm just thinking I'm going to catch meow out there, and still waiting for this limo. And these cars and, everything's going by me left and right. And I call a number, because now I've been there for, probably an hour or so. And, like, hey, where can I said, no, they're looking for you. Where are you? I'm outside of terminal, whatever I was, gate so-and-so. I'm standing right here. You can't miss me. I got hockey sticks, a bag, nothing. I'm still waiting for this limo. And then all of a sudden I said, what color, what color is this limo? So, maybe, it drives by me and I'm not seeing it. They said, oh, it's a big blue, like sport utility SUV. And I'm going, all right. So now I start to see these things popping by me left, right, and center. It says Connecticut limousine on them. So I get in the back of this SUV, so to speak. And it's like a van. It's like a passenger van. And there's about 8-9 people, and they're going to make a whole bunch of stops going back to New Haven. So that was my first taste of my limo ride from New York to New Haven. And then I got off the, by the time it was so late, like
it was basically a super, they sent a super shuttle for you.
Yeah. I don't even know if it was super. It was just a shuttle. I wouldn't even call it super. So we had like, I don't know how many stops we made between New York and New Haven, but it took forever. So we're getting to New Haven, and I'm supposed to be staying at this, it's a Howard Johnson's hotel where they had a Long Wharf, I think it was called. And the limo that I was on only went to this place downtown in New Haven. It was 4:00 in the morning or so. And so I'm the last guy to get off this thing. And I says to the limo guy, I said, hey, can you take me over? He goes, no, I can't do that. I said, sir, I said, where? I said, I don't even know where the hell I am. And he drops me off the street, got bags and everything. And downtown New Haven at 4:00 in the morning wasn't the best place to be. And there was a hotel that where he dropped me off, and I tried to knock on the window to go in there. And they wouldn't let me in. They thought I was some derelict out in the street. So I spent a little time there. I didn't get to the hotel till 7 a.m. And so I had to wait till I could find a taxi that actually came down the street. That was my experience making my way to the NHL.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
I love it. So you end up there. You end up playing with them. You get traded at some point.
Right. Yep. So my first year in New Haven, so I break my wrist in January,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm out for a couple of months.
Somebody else on on this podcast broke their wrist their first year.
Oh yeah.
And then so in January, so in March, I start playing again, and I get called. That's when I got called up to LA. It was in March at the trade deadline when you kind of set your roster in. So I was fortunate enough. So I came up and played the last 14 games of the season. And the guy who was coaching me in New Haven was Don Perry. Don Perry I had the year before when I was in Saginaw after my junior career. So that was LA's farm team in Saginaw. So when I finished my junior hockey, when we got beat out in Brantford, the Kings called me up to play in Saginaw in the International League.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 3 games left on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I played in all 3 games. I had 3 goals and 3 assists. And the only way that I could play in the playoffs is 4 guys were hurt. But they asked me if I'd like to stay around and practice with the team. I said, yeah, why not? So I stayed there and practiced. They went on to win the championship. Great experience. I got to know the coach a little bit. And he became my coach the next year in New Haven. So now during the year in January, when I break my wrist, that same coach, Don Perry, gets called up and he ends up coaching the Kings. So when I get called up to the Kings in March, Don Perry's my coach again. So now for the 3rd time in my young life, I've got same coach. I've had him in the NHL, American Hockey League, and the International League. And he says to me, he goes, hey, he says, just like we did last year, when you came to, to Saginaw, he says, we put you in. He said, we got a few injuries right now. He said, and away we go. So I played the last 14 games of the season, had a couple of goals and 6 assists. I had 8 points. And then when the playoffs started, he said, all the guys are healthy. He said, so the chances of playing aren't too good. He says, but, he says, you really grew as a player. And, I said, okay, yeah, no problem. Keep practicing. And then comes to me the next day, he says, they're expanding the roster from 19 to 20 players for the playoffs. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, he said, I might dress you. He says, obviously it's up to the general manager and all that, but he said, I'll put my 2 cents in. He says, because you got a good attitude. He says, you're always upbeat and that. And he said, now you're not going to play if you get dressed. I said, what better place to watch a game than from the bench? I said, give me the pom-poms. I'll be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, whatever you need. I said, I'll be at the end of the bench. So Edmonton, we'll play Edmonton. I get into game 1 in Edmonton, and we're down 4-1 in the first period, right off the bat. And he's looking down the bench, and there's me and a couple other guys that weren't playing much. He said, well, I might as well put those guys in for a little bit. And we went on, and they put us on the ice, and things started to turn around a little bit. Come the end of the game, we ended up winning the game 10-8. I had 2 goals, 2 assists. I was first star hockey night in Canada. That was my first playoff game.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Quite a defensive team you guys had there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was still today. It's still the record today. 18 goals combined by 2 teams.
That's pretty awesome.
I guess
hear the chant defense. That was foreign language back then.
You know what you guys heard? Shoot.
Yeah. Last shot wins.
I love it. That's
hey,
awesome.
so Daryl, coming into LA, I mean, it's like an out of body experience for most people. People go for vacation there. I mean, holidays, big city, right? The city of angels. That must have been really, I mean, and it's still such an incredible place. You've been there a long time, but as a young player, that must have been, I mean, you must have been drinking from the fire hose, playing in the Los Angeles Kings, fabulous forum, all the movie stars and all that.
It was, it really was a great experience. We got to meet some of the, the actors and things like that at the time, and they were more in awe of the hockey team. A lot of them were transplant Canadians and things like that. The fan base was nowhere near what it is today, but it was really interesting. Like you say, drive into Beverly Hills, things that you see on TV, and to actually be, walking those streets and driving those streets was a great experience. And yet then on the other hand, like getting into the neighborhoods and, just to see like the residential area and how the similarities were to back home. Like, once you get away from the beach and things like that, you really wouldn't know exactly what city that you're in. But, the palm trees, the weather was incredible, and then eventually finding the beach where, I'm close to the beach now where I live. It's become part of my everyday life. And it just it energizes me. The fresh air, just, listening to the water, and, just the activity, the physical activity, the fitness on the beach is great. And it's something that keeps me going every day.
Nice. I like it. How did your trade from Los Angeles happen?
Well, from Los Angeles, I ended up going to Washington, and I got traded for Curry. And so when I just used the name Curry, I always tell everybody it was Yari Curry, but so they thought it was a big deal. No, it was Glenn Curry for the Washington Capitals. So I got traded to Washington, and I thought it was, at that time I thought it'd be a good opportunity because the Kings were pretty much set in the positions that they had and the guys that they had on their roster. And I went there. I had a reasonable training camp, and I ended up starting the season off in Binghamton, which was their farm team that they shared with the Hartford Whalers at the time. Then I went down there, had a hell of a year down in Binghamton. I ended up with over 90 points. I was an all-star. And, the opportunity, I got called up to Washington once during the year, but, when I got called up, it just, I wasn't, given the chance or what I would have liked of, or the period of time to be able to establish myself there. And, I think as I look back at my career, every level I found a way to get the job done. And, did it happen right off the bat? Not necessarily, but, I just wish I had a little bit more time in the NHL to establish myself, because I think I could have eventually put up the numbers that I consistently put up throughout my career, whether it be junior, the International League, the American Hockey League, where, in New Haven, I'd scored 51 goals. In Binghamton, I'd scored 42 goals. So, I proved myself at those levels. I just wasn't able to do it in the NHL.
The reason I bring up your trades is because I want to talk about how you keep your relationship with the Los Angeles Kings that you end up going back there to work. How did you make friends while you were there, and they were forever friends, or how did it happen?
Well, I met my wife. My ex-wife, my former wife, we met. She was actually a sister. Her sister, she had two sisters, and both her sisters married former NHL players. Mm-hmm. One being Mike Murphy, and then the other one being Vic Vanaski. So I met her, and so that was the tie to to come back to back to California. So we came back to California, and then at the end of my career, I actually went over to Europe for a couple of years. I spent a year up in northern Italy, Val Gardena, a little town up in the Alps, and then the year after that, I went to England as a player coach, and eventually went on to coach, and had a great experience there, right up along the North Sea up by Newcastle. And, two great experiences. By that time, my son was born, and I was all set to go back. I had negotiated a multi-year contract to go back and coach again in England. And I was at the airport one day, and King's new general manager had just been hired, Sam McMaster. And Sam McMaster was my general manager when I was 9 years old, and was my general manager in junior hockey, and my baseball coach. And he happened to be on the same plane as my brother when I was picking my brother up at the airport. And we got into a conversation. He asked me what I was doing. I was told him I was in the car business in California. And he said, "Oh," he says, "I'm going to need a car." He says, "Give me a card." He said, "I'll give you a call in the morning." I said, "Yeah, I won't be hearing from him." And by 9:30, 10 o'clock the next morning, he's on the phone. He goes, "Daryl," he said, "they told me to go ahead and get a car from you." So we ended up putting a deal together with the Kings in our dealership, where it involved tickets, picture in the program, and a 30-second radio commercial. And so everything's going good. We fulfilled that. We got the tickets, and we got the ad in the program. And, I think at the time we give them, I think it was 3 cars for Rogie Vachon, I think, Larry Robinson and himself, the coach, the president and general manager, they all got cars from us. And the only thing that had not been fulfilled yet was the radio, the 30-second radio spot, which we kind of put off to our advertising group in the car business. And so the Kings called me up and said, "Hey, Daryl, nobody from your dealership has come by to do the radio ad yet." so I called, the president of the car company. I said, hey, yes, we're losing out on airtime. He goes, I don't know. He goes, why don't you go do it? And I've never done anything like that. He goes, they'll know your voice. They don't know my voice. They didn't even know me as a player, as let alone my voice. So I call up, and Nick Nixon, who's my partner on the radio today, he was the play-by-play guy in the radio back then. And, so I, called up and they said, okay, we'll give you a pair of tickets to the game if you want to come, meet me at 4:00 and we'll cut the radio, clip. And then, here's a pair of tickets, you watch a game. So I get there. Mike Allison, former player Mike Allison, was the color analyst on the broadcast with Nick at the time. And I get there at 4:00 and Mike wasn't there yet. And I said to Nick, hey, like, how you go, blah, blah, blah. And, where's Mike? He goes, oh, he says, he had some bad news back home. Somebody had passed and he was making arrangements. He just got the news a couple of hours ago. He making the arrangements to fly out the next morning. And, he was going to come do the game, but he was going to be a little bit late. I said, oh, too bad. Sorry to hear that. And I don't know whether I looked at the schedule or something there said that Kings either played the next night or 2 nights later. I said, who's doing the game with you on, Thursday night? He goes, oh, gee, I hadn't thought about it. I said, well, I'll do it with you. And that's how I did my first game on the radio.
Oh, man. Oh, man. That is awesome. Or not for the guy that lost the family member, but for you.
Yeah.
No, like it's right place, right time.
Bingo. Yep.
Both times. Just happened to picking up your brother.
Yep.
Just happened to go. That's the day that you go to cut the commercial. Like, because if they'd sent you a different day, that doesn't happen.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh.
Somebody's looking out. Somebody's looking out. Yeah.
Somebody's looking out, but you gotta look at things always. Yep. Something might happen.
Yep. Keep your eyes always open. Always believe.
Nice. Hey, Daryl leads us into Nick Nixon. Talk a little bit about him, and he's been there forever.
Now let's go back to.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Who's doing the game with you tomorrow? I'll do it.
Hey, well, but Nick Nixon, I mean, it tells you how much things have changed over the years, but Nick Nixon's been there for how many years now? Is it 40?
Oh, yeah. He's over 40. Because he started, he got called up that year. It would have been, I think, 81 season. So I think this is like 43, I think, for him or something this year. But he does an incredible job. And it was funny because, like, when I was in the car business prior to, doing that one game with him, I'd listened to him so much. It just felt like we were having a conversation. So when I did step on the air with him, the transition it kind of seemed, just natural, knowing the way that he called the game. And he's been a big help, all along, even to today. I'm in my 24th year now working with Nick, and you still learn something all the time. He's a professional, Hall of Famer, and does an incredible job. And our fans are blessed to have the consistent voice of Nick for so many years, and deliver the Stanley Cup championships, the calls that he made, and sitting alongside him in the booth was special doing that.
How I'm going to go back a little bit. So you say I'm available tomorrow. How long before you become full time?
Okay, so I do that one game, and now like I say, I'm managing a Cadillac dealership in West Los Angeles, and so by the time of course, Mike works the rest of the season, and by the time the season comes to an end, I think Mike had decided that he was going to move back home. He wanted to be closer to home and his family. So that's when they came and they offered me the position at the end of the season, and unfortunately at that time, I was married. I had my son. I think my daughter may have been just kind of on the way. Maybe my wife may have been pregnant at the time, and unfortunately, we couldn't come to terms financially because of the obligations that I had with a mortgage and a couple of kids now, and so I actually had to turn down the job initially, and they ended up hiring Camry Granato.
Oh. So
Cammy Granato came on board, and so shortly after she got hired, she also said that I think I want to give it one more try at the Olympics, because it was an Olympic year. And so she wanted to join the national team, and they asked me if I could fill in for like a handful of games while she fulfilled her fulfilled her, her dream to go back to the Olympics. I said, yeah, whatever you need. So I ended up doing 17 or 18 games that year. And it was at the end of that year, the end of that season, that the Kings had come to me. We started up an alumni association. So I became the president of the alumni association. And then they came to me at the end of the year. So this is going to be in the spring of 99. And we're going to open up Staples Center in the fall of 99 downtown. We're going to move downtown from the Forum to Staples Center. And they asked me to be the director of suites and premier seat sales because of the sales experience that I had with high-end cars, being Cadillac at the time. So I took on that job as the director of suites and premier seat sales. A short period of time after that, we had broken ground. We were building our training facility in El Segundo, where I'm sitting here today, in this beautifully decorated office that personally I decorated. And they asked me to be the general manager of the facility. So I opened this facility as a general manager. I was the director of suites and premier seat sales downtown. I was managing a Cadillac dealership, president of the Alumni Association, and filling in on the radio from time to time.
Oh my God.
And then when that season started, when the 99 season campaign started, that's when I went full throttle to the radio.
I love it. That's so fantastic. So Jeff brought up earlier how well dressed you are. Is that from the beginning of time for you, or is that as you were in the Cadillac dealership?
Yeah, as a caveman, I used to wear one of the finest tailored mammoth suits that no. I think going back, like I remember as a youngster, again,
as a kid,
yeah, we didn't have a lot of money as a family, and I'll never forget when my mom and dad bought me my first suit, and how good I felt wearing that suit and the pride that I took wearing that. So in junior hockey, got kids that I get kidded about. I had my first 3-piece suit, and it was cool. And then I always liked dressing nice. I felt that when I was dressed nice, you feel good about yourself. And then as I turned pro, and it's kind of making you're doing your own decision, buying your own clothes and that kind of stuff. Different styles were out, the thin ties, the leather pants, the fedoras, all that kind of stuff, and experiment with these kind of things, and then get my own suits made, and then all of a sudden, probably 25 years or so ago, like the shiny materials, just different stuff kind of started to come out, and that's the kind of stuff that caught my eye. So it's just so now I'm at the point where I've got a young lady here in Los Angeles that makes my suits. It actually used to be on our ice crew, and when she was on the ice crew, I'd ask all the kids, hey, what are you gonna, where are you doing? I'm in school. We're gonna work at IHOP. I do this, I do that. One's working at fashion or going to school at the Fashion Institute downtown. I said, men's clothes. She goes, no, ladies' clothes. I said, well, if you ever get into men's clothes, I said, let me know. I said, I'll be your first customer. And so a little time goes by, and our 2014 Stanley Cup party comes around, and she was invited. My son invited her to the party, and she goes, "Oh, Mr. Evans." She says, "I'm selling men's suits now." She says, "Can I come, show you, my book and material?" Yeah, sure, come on down. So it shows me some beautiful, pinstripes and checks and this kind of stuff. I said, "Yeah." I said, "These are beautiful. It's beautiful cloths." I said, "But," I says, me. I says, I like something like with a little bit of shine, something a little bit different. And like kind of the light bulb went off, just like, Dumb and Dumber when they brought out the orange and light blue tuxedos, So she said, "I'll come see you next week." So she comes out the next week, and she's got all these crazy materials. And my eyes, I guess, the smile, I'm, cheek to cheek. I just got a big smile going on. I said, bingo, that's it. So she became my tailor, and she's awesome. My suits today. And now I go to the point where I go into the material store now. And I pick the cloths out with her.
Good for you. Do you want to give her a shout out? Do you want to,
Gentleman's Jersey is the name of her company. Her name's Brooke Emery, and she does an incredible job.
Nice. I love it. Did you ever get any suits from there's the guy in Montreal that used to.
I had him for a number of years, Giovanni. Yep. Yeah. For a number of years. Yep.
I was like, everybody gets the suits at the same place. That's interesting.
Well, it's funny because his dad, let's see, probably would have been like 60 years ago. His dad had the business, and his dad did an incredible job, and then the son took over, and got suits there for a lot of years. But just having somebody here, like locally, right in Las
Absolutely.
Vegas, and being able to go to the store, like I go in the store now, like, and the girl, the lady now who makes my suits, like she's fashion extraordinaire, like she's dressed right out, she's got the look and all that, she's all made up and everything like that. So when we go in there, and I just walk in with shorts and a t-shirt, and we're looking at all these crazy materials, and she goes, "Oh no, I don't, sir, I don't think this will go good with her skin color." I said, "It's not for her." I said, "It's for me." And they go, "What?" They kind of laugh, and they said, "Well, what are you going to make, a tie?" I said, "No," I said, "I'm making a suit." And then they laugh even more. So then I show them like all the pictures of all the suits that she's made for me, and they go, "Wow, those are incredible." So I'm like a kid in the candy store when I go into that material store downtown. It's great.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, it's so Daryl, the people that got to watch the broadcast to see you. I always look forward to it when you're on. I want to ask a question. We've talked a lot, but I want to talk a little bit about the Kings, and of course we're opening up tonight. They're hosting Vegas, start of the season. But I want to talk. Ian and I went down and watched a playoff game there last year when they beat Edmonton at home, and the team really looks like they've turned the corner. The patience that Rob Blake and the organization have shown, it looks like it's really paying off. I want to ask you though, as you've watched the last couple of years, there's one moment last year that kind of stands out to me as kind of the moment where this team took another step, obviously on their way to the playoffs, and that's an Eastern road trip where they ended up beating Boston, coming back late in the game and beating them in overtime. But that's just one that sticks out to me. Talk a little bit about this, what you see. You're around the team all the time, and what you see going forward, kind of in the stepping stones that they've kind of made, or the steps they've made to kind of get themselves in the playoffs and maybe be a real contender this year.
I think the organization for a whole has done a great job, with Rob Blake as general manager and Luc Robitaille as president. I think they've put together a plan. The hiring of Todd McClellan, who's now in his fourth year with the team. I think they brought in the right type of coach to kind of go through a rebuild, so to speak. They started retaining their draft choices. When we won cups in 12 and 14, we still thought we were on the cusp of maybe another one. And, you do whatever you can to possibly win another one when you think you're that close. And, we traded away some first round draft choices and things like that. So, the shelves became bare. And, what Rob Blake and management have done, they've done a great job. The scouts have done a great job at restocking the shelves, so to speak. We've got some great young kids. There's a couple of points last year, like right off the bat when Drew Doughty and Sean Walker got hurt, everybody thought the season was over, that, how are we going to be able to perform? So I think what this did is it really gives us a chance to assess what we had, on those shelves and down in the minors. Maybe we had to bring them up a little bit earlier than expected, but I think we got to learn, how the type of depth that we're now starting to develop. The development team has done a great job at, turning these guys into pros. You mentioned games like that against Boston. We had road trips that we went on where, we picked up points in every game. So there were growing points, guys trusting each other, trusting the coaching staff, believing in the systems. And then I think when you look going down the stretch, Jonathan Quick took the team upon his shoulders. He performed like the Jonathan Quick that most people, saw and thought was gone, from years ago. But he's such a proud guy, and he took the team on his shoulders. And the ride into the playoffs, you look at last year when the year started as well, bringing in Danault, Arvidsson, Alex Edler, those were big steps. I mean, you bring in, two guys that are, in the prime of their career, and guys like Danault and Arvidsson, and then you bring in Edler to stabilize the young guys back in the blue line. That was a big boost. And I think what that showed the players, that the organization's committed to making this team a better team. And then as soon as the year come to an end, disappointing that you don't win the series against Edmonton, but we didn't know how to win because, we hadn't gone through that as a group. And,
right.
the Oilers found a way to win. And yet Rob Blake, Luc Robitaille management, boom, first thing they do is go out, get on the horse, and they acquire Kevin Fiala, which is a huge addition. It's exactly what this team needed. A pure natural goal scorer, a point getter. They need offense in this team, somebody to spark the power play. And that's all the elements that he should bring. Last year we saw Adrian Kempe, score career high 35 goals. Some of these young guys, it takes a little bit longer to develop. Trevor Moore got a chance to play. Sean Dursey, who may have never got a chance to play if we didn't have a rash of injuries. We had one point in, I think it was in February, we had 6 guys on defense that weren't on our opening night roster. So it just goes to show you how much development and how much depth that the organization is going. And moving forward, I mean, it should be an exciting year. Although this year, the Kings aren't going to fly under the radar. I think everybody expects the Kings to be a good team. Last year, everything that they accomplished was done 5-on-5. They did it without a power play, without a penalty kill. So now with the addition of Fiala, power play, Drew Doughty, who missed half the year last year as well, power play should be much better. And it's already shown, signs of that in the preseason, scoring goals in 6 out of 7 games, 8 power play goals in the preseason. That should be better. Penalty killing should be better. So it should be a more competitive team ready to take that next step. And in saying that, I still think, they need a little bit of size, and maybe a little bit more experience on the left side back on the blue line.
Right. And one thing that impressed me watching them live, and of course we watched a lot of the Pacific Division, watched this team a lot over the years, Stanley Cup years, and even before that. But one thing that impressed me, and I got to give Todd credit for this, is the pace and almost the relentlessness that they played with. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Carolina. Like, one thing you see when you play Carolina is they're on you all night. I saw that kind of growing into this team. And of course, when you're led by a guy like Kopitar, and Danault was phenomenal too, like Trevor Moore, some of the Arvidssons, these guys came in. But I mean, when you're led by a guy like Kopitar, and then you get Doughty and you got Quick back there, I mean, the feeling in LA has got to be, we got to just keep building on this. People have to be really excited about this team coming into this season. So you think they need a little bit more size, a little better special teams, and a full year of a Drew Doughty being healthy? You think that's good enough to get them beyond a wild card spot and in top 3 in the division?
Well, that's what they strive towards. I think when you look at special teams, and they're in the bottom, basically the bottom handful on both sides of it. If they can improve their special teams, especially the power play, get it into the midway part in the middle of the pack, in the top 2/3 there anyway. I think it's going to make them a better team. Now, they got to remember, they can't forget anything that they did 5-on-5. Everybody's going to look at them this year. Did so-and-so have a career year last year? Did so-and-so have a career year last year? So they've got a lot to prove, not only, to everybody else out there, but to themselves. Doing it once is one thing, but it's that consistency. But everything is in place for them to do it again. And then, when you do get to that postseason, now you've got to find a way. How do we win around? Do they come, are they at the level of, the Colorados, the teams that were, in the finals and things like that? They're not there yet, and they know they're not there yet. There's a lot of growing to do. But the one good thing that is encouraging and exciting is the potential for that growth comes from within. They will have to add a couple of pieces, as I mentioned, probably that, a little bit of size, that big left D, somebody like that would really complement the team. But I don't know if there's a rush to do that. If the timing comes right, they still got to give a couple of guys opportunity, like young Gabe Velarde, the former first-round draft choice, Arthur Kaliev. These guys had, solid years last year. Quentin Byfield, still cutting his teeth a little bit. For him, if these guys take that next step, then this Kings team is going to be, a real tough team for the next handful of years, because these guys are all going to be able to grow together. And, Cal Peterson in net, he's got to, kind of, take charge there. I mean, Jonathan Quick's 36 years of age right now, most competitive guy that I know in the game. And he's not giving up that spot. So I think they got a healthy competitiveness for that goaltending position. And they should get more consistent goaltending night in and night out, better defensive play, because now everybody's got a little bit of experience. And offensively, with the addition of Fiala and the growth of other players in the power play, I think they're going to score more goals than they did last year as well.
Love it. Inside, giving us the inside point of view.
Yeah, I like that.
we're gonna wrap it up, but I want to mention you do a lot with the community, and I don't want to leave that out there. I don't think anybody's more community minded than Daryl Evans. Is there anything you want to say about that before we get going?
Well, I think that's the most important thing. I feel so fortunate to have been given the opportunity to play, and I was never a big star here on the ice or anything like that. But when I go into the community now, and all the charities that I'm involved with, I host our run club and our bike club. I do all our camps and clinics and things like that. But just to see the commitment of the fans, I mean, it's just these people, some of these people, King's outing is one of their biggest outings, of the week, the month, maybe the year, if you're buying season tickets. So it's just, you learn so much about people, and met so many incredible people, and you draw strength from these people. And again, this is what makes you believe, is when you see a community come together, because you're only as strong as the people that support you. And in this community here, the Kings are a strong organization, have shown a lot of growth because of the people that have committed the time and the trust that they have in the Kings.
I love it. That people need to have that opinion about their towns and put it back in everywhere you go. And also, I just want to mention that this interview is brought to you by Cadillac. Your kid needs 3 Cadillacs. See Daryl Evans.
And
I still got the connection.
And if your business or your corporation's looking for a suite down at crypto.com, Daryl's your guy.
I love it, Daryl. What a great story. Thanks for being a great interview. Fun season, and we appreciate you being on the show.
All right, keep up the great work, guys, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
We'll see you when you get to Vegas, Daryl. I'll come up and say hi.
All right, I'll wear a real subtle suit. You won't recognize me.
When I walk in, I might have to get dressed up. I'm not sure I got anything with enough bling for you,
I'll bring two. I'll bring 2 then with me.
Thanks, Daryl.
All right, guys, have a great one. Thank you.
You too, bud. Fantastic interview with Daryl Evans. Just a good guy. Big smile.
I just love his energy, actually, and it's infectious. And he's on the air. He's like that, and all of the things that he's done and he's been a part of, because he's been present, right? He's just there. And you could say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. That kind of, I think, sums up Daryl. And it's pretty amazing to hear. I remember McMullen's Pub here in Vegas, Mr. McMullen said, the only way to do is by doing. And I think that sums up Daryl Evans right there.
I'm going to write a book, Sharpalisms.
Yeah.
I love it. So we wrap it up here. Just let everybody know, join the hockey pool. We'll be back next week. We have some interviews coming back next week. Jeff, send us I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Join us on social media all over, enjoying Orange Slices. Tell your friends about it. Listen to us. Rate, like, and review. Any shout outs this week, Jeff?
Yeah, I got 2 shout outs. Shout out to all my family I got to see up north. That was awesome. And my brother's birthday today. So happy birthday to my brother, Doug, up in the Great White North. And he's, I think, 39 today. I'm not sure, but happy birthday, Doug. And then I got to give a shout out to, obviously, to my brother. It's his big birthday day, but I got to give a shout out to Brooke, who does Daryl's suits. Because once you see Daryl's suits, you got to shout out to the person that makes them. So shout out to Brooke in LA doing Daryl's suits. And that's it. How about you?
My shout out to all of Canada and any Canadian around the world. Yesterday was Canadian Thanksgiving. We all want to thank you for letting us be Canadian.
Love to all.
Loved all.